Time for business. Kate Moody joins us. Changes to travel restrictions in the United Kingdom have sparked anger and frustration for the tourism industry. Kate.
Well, 7 countries, Mark, including Costa Rica, Egypt and Sri Lanka, have been added to the so-called red list, which bars non-essential travel. No countries were added to the green list, which allows free travel. And in a somewhat surprising move, Portugal was demoted to the amber list, which requires an at-home quarantine and several COVID tests for returning travelers. Now, Portugal was the only European country on the UK's green list when it was unveiled last month, and thousands of British holidaymakers are likely to be affected. Emerald Maxwell reports.
The announcement was met with almost universal dismay. Less than 3 weeks after giving holidays in Portugal the green light, the UK government is reimposing a quarantine for travellers coming from the popular southern European destination.
When things constantly change like that, and it's that constant changing of goalposts, that's the frustrating side of things. It would certainly make me think twice about booking a holiday now.
Gutted, really, but anyway, it is what it is. I understand, but we can't quarantine. When we come back, we've got for work, so we've just had to cancel everything.
The UK travel industry had been expecting a wider reopening this month, but now faces weeks of cancellations and more uncertainty. Over the past 3 weeks, Portugal had proved a lifeline for it, as the only country in Europe open to UK travellers. EasyJet said it was a shock decision that simply isn't justified by the science, while the Airport Operators Association said summer 2021 is shaping up to be worse than last summer, which was the worst in aviation history. It added that if the government blocks another holiday season, it must provide more financial support. The move is also a huge blow for Portugal's tourism sector, which depends heavily on British travellers. The Portuguese government said the UK's decision lacked logic and that it was continuing the easing of its lockdown with clear safety rules for those who visit.
The Biden administration has added 28 Chinese firms to a Trump-era blacklist, barring American investors from buying or selling their securities. It's an effort to cut their access to U.S. capital. 59 companies in total will be restricted once the order takes effect on August the 2nd. They include Huawei, China Mobile Limited, and the Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation. The executive order cites alleged ties to China's military, which could pose a U.S. national security threat. Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street closed in the red. The Nasdaq was down about 1% at the closing bell. The Dow Jones closing slightly under the flat line there. Shares of AMC Entertainment continued their wild ride, plunging 30% before making up those gains and finally closing 18% lower. Trading of those shares was suspended several times in what appears to be more volatility driven by individual or retail investors. 2 sets of data, meanwhile, have raised hopes about tomorrow's labor report. First-time claims for unemployment benefits dropped below 400,000 last week for the first time since the early days of the pandemic, and the private sector added nearly 1 million jobs in May, according to payroll processing firm ADP. French businesses are preparing for COVID restrictions to be further eased next week. Gyms and amusement parks are among those that expect to reopen, and they're hoping for a busy summer season. Solange Mougin has more.
This theme park outside Paris may seem like a ghost town, but behind the scenes, it's a hive of activity. Employees of the Mer de Sable, Sea of Sand amusement park, only have a few days left before reopening to the public.
Le compte à rebours a commencé, donc là, la pression monte, toujours. Les veilles d'ouverture, c'est toujours un peu plus nerveux, quoi.
There are some 200 new employees to train. Many are thrilled to have found work again.
Trouver un travail, c'était vraiment quelque chose d'assez difficile dans ces derniers temps. Du coup, voilà, satisfait et heureux.
The park even feared not finding enough people to hire on short notice. So back in April, they filled a third of the seasonal jobs and placed them on furlough until the government set June 9th as the opening date.
Étant donné qu'ils étaient en contrat, ils savaient qu'ils auraient leur emploi par derrière et nous, on est sûr d'avoir qu'ils soient là à l'ouverture, quoi.
And there is work to do. Despite a 45% dip in revenue because of COVID, the theme park decided to go ahead with building a new €3 billion roller coaster. It's a long-term bet to attract new visitors.
C'était très important pour nous de voir sur le long terme. Comme je vous l'ai dit, c'est entre 20 et 30 ans pour l'amortir. Donc on perd peut-être une année d'exploitation, c'est ce qu'on a perdu. Mais bon, ça fait un 20e qu'on va amortir sur les 19 années restantes.
For a sector that employs 30,000 people and brings in 3 billion euros every year, the amusement park industry in France has been hit hard by COVID-related closures. Government aid covering up to 70% of fixed costs has helped. But now this park is hoping to corral the crowds.